start over.
Got
Okay,
it?
we're
Okay,
recording.
we're recording.
So let me officially welcome you all to the Character Drawing Boot Camp 2020. This is our first time doing this. I'm so excited that you're all here. And we have Diana Coco Russell here also. As I kind of mentioned earlier, she's going to be in the chat. And so you can be asking her questions as I'm talking. I'd love it if you listen to me too. but obviously some things I'm going to say might spark a question. Some of those questions are I hope to answer at the end. Okay, so there will be a Q&A at the end. Matter of fact, I'm going to set an alarm right now that will go off to give me my warning. And we'll make that at, oh, and by the way, I don't know if you noticed that in the email, I've extended our class time all 4 days. I want to
Right.
make this a 2-hour class, not a 1.5. So obviously, if some of you guys already have plans after an hour and a half and you have to leave, you can come and go. We're recording this. And so my goal is that we'll post this on a YouTube, a private YouTube page,
Right.
and I'll send out the link. I don't promise I will do that today, unfortunately, but I will try. But because it's going to take a while, this will be a really large file. Oh, does that mean that you're going to end up with the file, Diana, since you're the one
Don't worry,
recording it?
we'll do a Google Drive. We're gonna be good.
Okay.
Don't worry about
Okay.
anything.
Okay.
So
So,
we had a funny comment, thought that I'd like to share with you, Tom, that
yeah.
it's gonna make us feel old. They started watching, Veggie Tales came out the year they were born, so.
Oh, gee. And that's more than one of you, I'm sure. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I
I
know.
know. I have a lot of people that come up to me at conventions and things like that and go, "Oh my gosh, you defined my childhood with those movies." And it's a compliment on one side, and on the other side, I just instantly feel very old. Okay, so we are going to 12. So I'm going to set my alarm for, uh, I guess 11:30, and that'll at least be my warning to wrap up.
Oh yeah, they're posting the years they were born, Tom.
Oh boy,
2004,
Uh,
2002.
I'm not even looking. I'm not even looking. So. All right, so water, and then we're going to get going.
Okay.
So from about here on, Diana will admit people as they come in late, and I'm sure that'll happen. So try and keep your eye on that. Thank you, Diana.
Right
And
now
then
we're at
she'll,
66 and we haven't
yeah,
had anybody show up since. So,
yeah. And so some people are just going to miss this altogether because it's 2 o'clock in the morning their time, and so
right.
they'll probably just watch the recording. So hello to you, and let's get going. So, all right. So I want to get ready. Here's a bold statement, okay? And I love bold statements. I really want to reinvent the way you draw this next 4 days, okay? And for many of you, I think I can promise that that probably will happen. That at one point, you're going to see, oh, shoot, I've been doing it wrong. And if you have that moment, then great. The problem that comes with that moment is that you may leave this class, this 4 days, and over the next 2, 3 days, as you're doing these assignments and stuff, do some of the worst drawings you've ever done. Okay, that's going to hurt a little bit, but we have to take a step back sometimes to move forward. Okay, and that's why I'm throwing that out there. I don't want you to get too discouraged. Okay, because anytime you try something new or go down another path, and wait till I talk about mechanical pencils. There's a lot of you that are not going to like me, but they're the devil, by the way. But we'll get there. So I'm going to start with the basics. I kind of promised that this class would be a little bit more of the fundamentals than I've done before in the past. That's redundant. I've done before. Um, and so I really wanted to do this for that reason. I wanted to get into the fundamentals a little bit more than I normally do. If you go to college, I'm an instructor at Lipscomb University here in Nashville, where I live now. Yeah. Um, and so I saw somebody cheering. Um, anyway, and so I like to start back quite a bit to a little bit of these. This is actually a lot of the critique. What I'm going to teach you in the next 4 days is a very condensed almost like 2 classes that I teach condensed together. So this is going to be a lot of stuff. You're going to hear a lot of tips and tricks. By the way, I hate that term, tips and tricks. It's for professionals that have been doing it for 30 years, like me. Most of the questions I get online are like, "Can you give me tips and tricks on how to draw hands?" Well, it's like, oh yeah, in like only 120, letters. I, or words. It's so complicated of a subject, and to not be able to sit down with that person and have a piece of paper and explain it and go through it, and take usually a couple hours probably on some of those harder subjects. It's just not tips and tricks. So here's what I do, and I do this with my students, is I do call out a tip and trick every once in a while. What it is I'm actually teaching you. So tips and tricks are spiced in there they're disguised as learning. So you are going to be learning, and you will get a few tips and tricks out of this, because that's just built into how we learn too. There's going to be little things that I'm going to say. So I know that you're going to walk away with stuff that you've never heard before, hopefully, but some of it may be the very beginning. Like, okay, this is how far back we're going to go. The pencil. I'm going to almost guarantee that many of you, I got to stop saying guarantee, but I'm going to say that a lot of you, because I'm talking about my background now. Thank you, Diana. She's actually holding up a pencil. My background, back when I went to high school, so I'm going to back up. I have a little pet peeve with how we're taught art in high school and even before that, elementary school. Some of you were blessed and you had an amazing art teacher. Actually, maybe even many of you, because many of us that are artists now or want to be artists, it's because we had a great teacher, right? That inspired us. We enjoyed that class, and that enjoyment from the class bled into our sketchbook and then the rest of our lives. And so even without the class, we were still enjoying art. But it started with that great teacher, okay? So I don't want to discount elementary and high school teachers, but I will say that the curriculum that they're given, most elementary and high school, and I'm mostly talking the United States, it might be different elsewhere, is not very strong. So let me paint a picture here. In most high schools, especially, and this is the way it was for me, it's a lot of techniques. It's all technique driven. It's
Mhm.
here's how you do pointillism, and we're going to do pointillism, and then let's look at Van Gogh, and that's what abstract type painting is. And now let's do oil painting, and by the way, do a self portrait in oil. I had to do that in high school.
And how
Here's
many
the hardest
self-portraits
medium.
can we do? Oh, look.
Oh, I mean, self-portraits are already the hardest thing you could probably do. And then do it in oil on top of that. It
No.
was crazy.
Yeah.
So you've been set up to do some of the worst art you've ever done in high school, because it's just one technique after another, and it's just coming at you rapid fire. The one thing that you probably didn't learn enough of, that you should have been learning 90% of the time, was drawing. And so I want to back up all the way to think about, when was the first time you were ever taught how to use a pencil? Kind of think back. We're going to assume it was, I don't know, elementary, maybe preschool, somewhere around, probably not preschool, I don't know, elementary school, we'll say. But it was to be used to do printing, writing, right? So it was probably an English teacher, maybe even your parents, saying, this is how you write letters, right? And here's cursive.
Mhm.
Maybe you even
Yeah.
learned cursive. And so it was this, and that was how you were taught how to use a pencil. Now fast forward to when you got into your first art class, maybe later on in elementary or whatever. Nobody really probably said, now here's how to use a pencil as an artist. They said, well, it's too basic to show you how to use a pencil. You've already been taught how to use a pencil. But there's a big difference on how you use a pencil to draw and how you use a pencil to write. So I'm actually backing up to pencils for this very reason, is that I think many of us were never taught how to use a pencil as an artist. So I'm going to go over this kind of quick. By the way, today's lesson is a real potpourri, in that I'm kind of hitting you with a fire hose today with just a lot of information. Primarily, I will be talking about equipment, which is pencils, and a little bit of erasers. But we will, and then I'm going to dive into character design principles and design principles, and that's mostly what we're going to do today. And I end with a very light assignment today. Uh, the next 2 days, we're going to put a lot of the principles we use today, or that we learned today, into practice. And we're going to start adding to those. And we'll start repeating some of those, because as an artist, I love getting repeated information. I miss it the first time, or I hear it now applied in a different way, and I go, oh, now I get that, right? I've never been that artist that um, learned everything the first time. I don't know about
Me
you.
neither.
I'm
No.
about 3 times, right? About 3 times, then I get
Yeah.
it. Okay. So if that's you, believe me, we will be repeating some things, and it's a good thing. Don't. I see critiques all the time on. My daughters are going to college this next year in the fall, and we went to ratemyprofessor.com. I don't know if you know about that, but you can go on there and you can rate college professors and stuff. And I was reading some of those because we were looking up some of the professors. We want to make sure they had good professors. And a lot of them were like talking about how repetitive they were and all that. I'm like, well, that's just teaching. I mean, you got to be repetitive. That's most of the time people don't hear something the first time. So anyway, so I'm gonna about start to screen share over here. Let me get to my I think this, oh, that's not gonna work. Hold on. Did I lose you? I don't know if you can see me now.
Yes, we can see you.
Um,
Not your screen yet.
yeah, let me, hold on. I got to get out of this mode. Okay. All right. So I want to be able to jump between, um, yeah, okay. So can you, now let's see, I have to share it. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so I'm going to share my Cintiq. Now, the way I'm going to draw tradiginally today. Hey, I almost made that word up. Tradiginally is drawing traditionally with your hand um, onto a digital surface. Many of you are already doing that. If you have an iPad, congratulations, you're a tradigital artist. So that's it is kind of a newer word, and I'm trying to make it famous. But I didn't make it up. I found that out recently. I was really disappointed. Okay, but I'm gonna get you over here. And so when I am drawing, that's the way I'm going to be drawing, is on my Wacom Cintiq. I don't know if you can see it over here. It's actually quite big. I have the largest one they make. I'm a pro. I'm spending money on that. So let me start doing that, and we'll go through my PowerPoint, and then I'm going to jump back and forth. There might be points that I want to do a little sketch to sort of illustrate. So that's what we're going to do now. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'll just do this. So, character drawing boot camp. You see that, I assume,
Yes.
right?
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
So I was going to make it full screen, but when it does that, it throws it to the other monitor. So I'm just going to keep this. So
That's fine.
all right, class 1. Let's go. This is drawing principles, shapes, and designs. We weren't taught how to draw with a pencil and other things we should know, but don't. That's pretty bold, I know. All right, so these are actually the pencils that I use. It's not that important that you use the exact same pencils I use. That Palomino Blackwing, the black one here. Can you see when I point to that?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay, great. That's a pretty expensive pencil. It's actually the ones made just like the ones that the animators used in the 1940s, and they still make them, and I love that pencil. And then these colored pencils, Prismacolors, as you can see the drawing beneath it, I love to sketch in a colored pencil and then go over it in graphite to create my final line. I don't talk about that a lot today, so I'm touching on it right now. But that I have a 2-step process to almost every drawing I do, and it's that I either grab a red or a blue. It doesn't really matter. And I do the sketching, the thought process in that colored pencil, and not too dark. And then I go right to graphite, and I'm adding details and changing things even when I'm in the graphite, because I don't like to trace. I never like to trace my own work. If I'm believe it or not, being a 2D animator, I had to draw the same, what looked like the same drawing over and over and over again, right?
Right.
But there were little minor changes, right? And so I think because of that training, I don't like to just trace completely over the same drawing. I want to improve it. I'm constantly trying to make it better. So I will rough something out in a blue or a red and leave question marks. I haven't answered every question in that sketch. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so when I'm adding the graphite line, the what I call the decision making line,
Mm.
I am I am then doing it in a bolder color, obviously the black that will stain the paper, it'll harder to erase. And so I'm having to make the decisions with the graphite, of course. But I only answered like 80% of the drawing problems with I'd like to add that extra 20% in the graphite. That's
Tom,
not true of everybody.
I find that with the red and the blue, it's like my thinking pencils. They're not as bold. They're easier to
Hmm.
erase. They're more thoughtful. It's kind of like the scribble construction lines. And then
Yeah.
because the Palomino or the Sharpie is so bold, it says slow down and think. You
Hmm.
know, exactly what you said, exactly what you said. So people are
And
asking
the
a little bit, how would you be doing that on an
oh
iPad? How would you translate that to an iPad? That's
Oh,
the drawing
very
process.
similar. I would have two layers. So my first layer would be my sketch layer, and I would be using a
Mm,
colored line. It'd be the same brush, but it would just be now a red or a blue. And so same kind of thinking, and it is more just a thinking thing at that point. It's less necessary.
okay.
And then I always and on Photoshop, and you'll probably see me do this over the next 4 days. I'll then bring down the opacity of that colored line
Yes.
too.
Mm,
And then I can add another layer on top of that. And now I can go to graphite. And basically the graphite might even, or maybe I'll go directly to inks. It's more of a digital ink brush, and I'll
right.
maybe be basically inking it. So we'll get to more of that in a sec. These are two erasers that I use. Really, this is my whole collection of basically what I use for about 80-90%, besides the digital side of my drawing. All right, so let's talk pencils. This is super basic, but believe me when I tell you, a lot of people don't know it still, which is, yes, artist pencils, not our regular number two, yellow number two pencil, but artist pencils obviously have different thicknesses and hardnesses. What we don't always hear about, and again, I don't think a lot of us were taught this, is why you choose which one you choose. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
so we go in the middle here to the HB, and that actually is those yellow number two pencils you use in high school or in elementary school. An HB is basically equivalent to that number two. That's what a number two is right there in the middle. HB. And H tends to, I've heard different things of what the H stands for and what the B stands for, but I'm going to go with the common one, which is H is hard and B is, I have heard black and bold, but I think it stands for black. I don't know. I'm going to say that, but it does go black or darker, and it does. And then the H goes lighter as we go away from the HB from the middle. We go to 4H all the way on the left here, and we get lighter and harder. Also notice the thickness of the lead here. As we go to the 6B, look how thick that lead is. So the leads are getting thicker and softer as we go to the 6B. And then as we go to the 4H, the other direction, it's getting to be a thinner lead and really hard. And really it doesn't matter, but what's causing that is, I've heard it's the amount of clay, I think they actually add more
Mm-hmm.
clay to it, to the B to get softer. And then it's more graphite, I guess, is that makes it the harder one, or it's less clay, one or the other. But so what you end up getting, the bad news about the soft leads is that they get, obviously, and we all know this as artists, they start getting really scary, right? We can get our hands in it and make a mess the more it gets. And that's why a lot of people don't like soft leads. Okay. But I'm gonna tell you something in a minute, but hold on to that thought. And then a lot of people like to go with the harder leads. By the way, this is what you'd find in a mechanical pencil are these harder leads. So it's going to be lighter. You have to kind of push harder in a lot of cases if you want to have a darker line. And but they're good for detail work. So I'm not saying that a H is not good, but here's what I'm going to do is I'm trying to reinvent sketching with you. That's my whole mantra today is how do you sketch? And that's what I'm trying to reinvent in your mind right now. So sketching, and that's why I have an arrow right here. The perfect pencil, I think, for sketching is around here, a 2B and a 3B. That's usually what I use almost every day. And why you get that is it's not like a 6B and they go up even higher than that. Glenn Keane at Disney, he would use like a 10B. And those are just like,
He would draw
they're
with a
like,
palomino. He would draw
oh,
with all sorts of messy things.
okay. Yeah. But they are messy. There's no doubt about it. The nice thing, and here's why you want to use a softer lead to sketch,
Mm-hmm.
is that basically Michelangelo, all those people, if they weren't using back in their day, they wouldn't use pencils, obviously, but because they weren't even invented, I think, at that point. They were in the 1800s. Mechanical pencils were in 1800s. So pencils do go pretty far back. But they would always use soft leads because they're like butter. Okay. So like, and that's a great thing for sketching is you want a pencil that's going to flow across the page and not pull you back, get snagged like the 4-H's. They will kind of like carve into the page, right? And so I like to say you want to sculpt on the page. So
Mm-hmm.
this sets up why mechanical pencils are not made for sketching. Okay, so many of you use mechanical pencils. I know. I see it every day in my art classes. I just want you to know they were not made for sketching. And yes, can you sketch? Can you do good drawings? Yes, you can. I know many comic book artists, good friends of mine that are pro comic book artists. J. Scott Campbell is one of them. He uses a mechanical pencil for everything. And a lot of people love them because you don't have to stop and sharpen it, right? But I want to tell you this. When you're really sketching correctly,
Mm-hmm.
here's two hints or this tip and trick. You don't have to sharpen very much, and best thing of all in sketching, and believe me, this is not true of many of you. You almost never have to erase. I
Right.
almost never erase. Okay, I know it's a bold statement, but believe me when I tell you, if you're really sketching in a sketchbook, right, you're supposed to be just trying to find your way. You're supposed to be adding a lot of lines. It's supposed to look messy, right?
Right.
How many people do you follow on Instagram or elsewhere and you're like, oh, I love how they sketch. Look how sketchy it is, right? We all want that. We want to get loose. We want to have flow in our drawings. And you don't do that with a mechanical pencil. A mechanical pencil, what it makes you do, because the line is so fine and because the line is so dead, and I mean dead is it's even. It doesn't have the thick and thin that a softer pencil has, or that a softer pencil can give you, because it doesn't bevel very much. It's not meant to. Guess what?
Mm-hmm.
Mechanical pencils were invented for architects. That's the whole reason they came into existence, was an easy way for architects. Look, the metal shaft there, it's meant to line up on a ruler and be able to draw this straight line, straight, even lines. Artists and sketching, that is not what you do when you sketch. That's not even what you want. You want varied lines that have some thick and thin. You want a soft pencil that can move smoothly and quickly across the page, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I really do preach this. Mechanical pencils are the devil. No, I mean, mechanical pencils are
Ah.
just not, I know that's too much. Mechanical pencils are just not made for sketching. Yes, they have been adapted. Yes, you can still draw nicely. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying they're not really made for sketching. And I do think if you feel like your drawings are kind of stiff and you've been wanting to get more flow in them and more life, and you feel like they're just I'm just frustrated with that. Drop the mechanical pencil for a while. Start trying with a 2B, 3B. And by the way, don't sharpen the 2B, 3B too sharp. I like to keep them kind of stubby.
Mm.
And because that's going to give you that thick and thin. Start working a little bit thicker. I hate to say that, but and what goes along with that is a bigger sketchbook. Some of you guys are drawing too small, and we'll get to that in a second. Erasers. So, like I said, I don't erase very much. And part of that is my process that I'm sketching with these colored lines first. And then when I do the graphite, the next step, the two-step process that I do, especially when I'm character designing, uh, I, I don't want to erase that blue or red line. I want to see it and just improve it in the graphite. So I don't need to, but what I do use is a kneaded eraser right here on the right. What those are, if you haven't seen those before, is they're like, I don't know, clayish kind of. It's not clay, but it's more rubber. And you really literally, to clean them, you stretch them, and they're fun. They're kind of therapeutic, I must admit. And so you're constantly sort of cleaning them, but just by stretching them like Play-Doh. But then you can put a point on them, you can shape them, you can get kind of some detail erasing. In general, what I do is I just brush it across the drawing, and I knock back the drawing. That's what that's called, knocking back the drawing. And that just loves it for me. It's still there. I can still see. Now I can go back over it with my graphite or whatever and do a nice clean line over it, and you can barely see. It's just faint. It makes it more faint. Now the plastic white eraser, I say it kills the line. It's meant to do that. It's meant to more fully erase that line. And so if you're using pencils that sort of stain the page, and by the way, the color erase blue and red, that's what's nice about it. It's not like the Prismacolor coloring pencil. It's a little harder, so it doesn't stain the paper as much as your average, say, Prismacolor color pencils. And that's these right here.
There have been questions about that, and I have been answering the difference between a Prisma, regular Prisma,
Yeah.
and a Colarase Prisma. That
Yeah,
is a
I'm
harder
sorry I
lead.
didn't go into what this is called. You're right. And this is called colorate. You can't really read it.
It's okay.
COL dash.
I've taken care of that
Okay.
in the chat.
Sweet. Thank you. All right. Now the next phase is, now that we've talked lightly about tools and why I like some more than others. And again, this is all geared toward not just my personal opinion, but what pencils are made to do. Really, that's why I'm backing us up to pencils and these basic things, is that I really believe as a culture of artists, we have pulled away from sketching. Listen to me. When you go on Instagram, and by the way, my Instagram is a gallery of artists that I love, right? I assume many of you, that's the case with you. Whether you go to a museum or if you're just looking on Instagram at people that you're fans of, when you're scrolling that and looking at their sketches, and by the way, super rare you see a sketch, right? What you normally see are finished colored pieces, right? I love
Correct.
Pernell Oram, but what she posts is mostly, finished colored pieces, and she's great at color, so that makes sense. But I'm one of the few people, I think, that posts, a fair amount of sketches and ink things and less color. One, as I really have time to do color, but most of my world is sketching. But I will say this: so we like as an artist, we love seeing the thought process in the sketch. We love to see the change in your mind, and I can see the arm was going to be here, but you moved it over here. That kind of stuff we eat up, right? But I think that Instagram and portfolio websites and all of this that we see day to day has killed sketching, because most of us are looking up to those people and we think that's what they do. And because they don't post their sketches, or very rarely, we think that they're not doing those things. Well, they are. They all have to sketch first. They're just not posting that. So get in tune with, I need to reinvent myself and I need to sketch more. Okay, tip and trick. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm pausing for drama.
Okay.
The number one thing you can do right now to be a better artist in 2 to 3 years. You want to hear? Yes. Great.
Yes, we want to hear. Please tell us, Tom.
More versions. So I don't want you to do one drawing of everything that you're going to draw. If I need to design a cat, I don't do one drawing. I do 5. And I do, each one of them are different. And we're going to get into character design in a second. So I'm going to start pushing you. Many times you guys go to final too soon. Do not go to final until you really thought through your sketch and made it the best it can be. Is it telling the story you want it to tell? Is the eye direction correct? Have you worked out the anatomy and the pose right?
Perfect. Yeah.
We all go to final too soon. If you want to be a better artist and have better art out there, number one thing, stay in the sketch phase longer.
Give yourself choices. How can
Yep.
you give yourself choices if you don't think out more solutions, right?
And it's not your fault. The world is pushing you to do this. Everything you see posted out there,
Deadline.
speed drawing, speed painting, right? We all see it every day, and it's fun to watch. But one, those are people that have done it for many years, usually made a lot of mistakes, and now they're just getting on there and showing how fast they can do something and how well they can do it at that level, at that speed. That's not true of everybody on this call right now, right? Many of
Right.
us are not ready to do that. So don't try to do. I see people that are just starting out in their career and they're posting speed painting things. I'm like, why? You're hurting yourself. That is not what it's about. Speed is not what drawing is about. Okay?
Well,
That was
it's
my
kind of
chicken
like those
strips.
cooking shows, Tom, that they would show you how to mix all the ingredients and then they would put it in the oven and turn around and pull the completed one right out of the oven that had been baking for 2 hours. And you're going, wait a minute, what happened in between? And that's, I think,
Yes,
with lots of drawing is the baking time. Do you know what I
you're
mean?
exactly right. You're
It's,
exactly right.
we're not a cooking show. You've got to think, you've got to have that bake time.
Yeah. Okay, so now how do I hold a pencil? Again, we were taught the one on the left, okay, what I'm calling the direct sketch approach, um, is the one that we are taught probably how to use a pencil. Because we weren't being taught as an artist, we were being taught how to write with a pencil, and that's how you
Mm,
write with a pencil. Now everybody holds a pencil weird. Again, my friend J. Scott Campbell, he holds it so weird. It's almost like he's a caveman drawing like that, and it's amazing. But so there are those anomalies out there. But in general, that's the way we were taught, and that's how you normally would hold a pencil, left or right. But I wanted to throw out the side sketch, which is more like, and that's the one on the right. It gives you a soft touch. Now you're using the side of the pencil, the lead, and you're getting this sort of really buttery kind of soft line. In figure drawing, if you've ever had a figure drawing class, that's how they'll teach you to hold your pencil. I like to every once in a while start my drawings with the side sketch technique. What it does is it keeps you thinking about the big picture,
shapes.
right? Yeah, I'm just drawing the bigger shapes. I can't go too detailed when I'm drawing like that, right? It forces me to just think of what is the shape of my character? What is the pose? I'm barely putting in where the eyes will be and things like that. But it gives me that sort of inspiration to go, I want to dig into that deeper, right? A good
Mm-hmm.
sketch makes you want to keep staying with it and adding to it. And of course, pulling out at the right time too, but that's the hard part, is just to know when to stop, right? But then I turn my pencil, right? And then, so after I've done that side sketch, now I turn my pencil and I do the direct sketch, which is I could be more firm, I could be more solid lines, and I can get into detail a little bit more. And so that's the time to do that. So if I do not only my two-step process, but also these two-step process with how I draw the side sketch to the direct sketch, I'm literally, and then I can go back actually literally after I've done the direct sketch and got my line work down to where I like it. I can go back to side sketch if I want to add shading, right? Because obviously shading is how the side sketch is how you do shading. So I don't shade very often. I mean, I can, I mean, maybe 0.1% of my career I've shaded. It's very rare, but some of you guys do, and I always like seeing sketches that have shading too. All right, so here's another thing. Okay, so now we're going to get into the zen of of sketching. This is what I like to tell my students. And this is Zen, but think about it. I'm going to say, don't draw lines, draw shapes with lines. Okay.
Yes.
Now, a lot of you guys, that doesn't make sense, right? And it doesn't on the offset. But this is the reinvention that I want you to have in your drawing and your sketching, is that many of us look at I don't know, water bottle that's in front of me here, and all I see is the outline shape, and I'm trying to see those. I'm trying to convert that thing that has no lines really into line, right? So there is a conversion happening that I have to do in my head because there's no lines there really, right? It's just plastic that goes into the background, whatever's behind it. And color is really what's separating the things and kind of creating a line, if you want to call it that. But I have to now convert that into line. And so it's very easy to get hung up on, I'm doing that drawing with a bunch of lines, and I'm doing little short lines. And I want you to start thinking about, no, it's a shape, and I'm going to convert that shape into line. Okay. And that's the Zen here that I'm talking about. And so let me jump to this one. So there's a difference between, and this is kind of, I've semi-made this up. I don't know if everybody would agree it, but I have looked at definitions. I believe strongly there's a difference between a drawing and a sketch.
I do too.
Many people use drawing and sketch as the same thing. I think, again, this is that Zen thing where we're saying, I can draw a circle two different ways. And the drawing is, I'm not picking up my hand, right? I've seen, when I tell my daughters who don't draw me a circle, they do that. They start at the top,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you can kind of see that's where I started on this too. And they'll draw all the way around and kind of try and make that meet at the top again. And that's their circle. And they pride themselves on how round it is. And that to them is talent, right? I was able to make that look really round, all in one line.
They're
And that
thinking about
means
the edge. They're thinking about nothing but the edge, not about the
it's
shape.
all the edge. Yeah. And you're not really considering the shape. Now, a sketch, and that's the one on the right, you can see how it looks different, obviously. Now, if I was drawing that, what you would see is I probably would start at that same point. I'd start at the top,
Mm-hmm.
but I would sketch down this way, and then I'd jump over here, all the way to the other side. Before I even did the other parts, I would jump to the bottom and sketch that part. I'd jump over to this side, and I would be creating that circle, but I'd be thinking of a sphere. We all know the difference between a circle and a sphere, right? A sphere is a circle, but it's dimensional, right? It's those ones when we see a drawing of a circle, but it has shading and a shadow underneath it. That's when it becomes a sphere. So I'm thinking of it as dimensional. I'm jumping around. I'm doing it with smaller strokes, shorter strokes, and I'm constructing it. To me, a sketch is a sculpture, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
sculpting it. And a drawing is like a carving. You're just carving it into the paper as if it was already there. You're just sort of tracing it. Now, drawing still can happen. I even say here, a sketch can be a drawing, but a drawing cannot be a sketch. That gets even more confusing, doesn't it? Because a drawing is never going to back up and become a looser, drawn in a different way, right? A sketch has to be drawn in a certain way, which is, it's a little bit rougher. It's constructed of a bunch of drawing lines and usually shorter strokes, and you're thinking dimensionally as you're drawing it. Okay, I'll continue. But that's, I wanted to talk about that a little bit. And this is what you're going to start seeing. So again, I talked about this briefly already about our friends on Instagram. These are actually animator drawings. Milk Calls, the bottom left here. And then the rest of these are all Freddie Moore. Many times we see Disney movies, we don't realize this is how it started. Look how sketchy these are. Look at, these are,
Oh, those are wonderful.
they are. I mean, they have such flow. Here, this top one, he didn't
Mm,
even finish Donald Duck and the other three amigos, or whatever they're called, three caballeros. He
look
was
at
just
that
sort of
gesture.
designing,
Oh,
but strong gestures, strong poses, strong eye direction, and we'll get into this stuff later. But I just want you to keep this in mind, is that this is how it all starts. They're filling up sketchbooks and papers of preliminary sketches before they do those final drawings. And so pros work rough first. Keep that in mind. All right, let's talk one more thing about sketching. And I won't go a whole lot further than this. Again, this is sort of my terminology. I think I made this up. I have a thing called searching lines and decision lines. So again, the searching lines in my case, the way I draw, might be in a light blue or a red, right? That'd be probably what I did in my colored pencil
Mm-hmm.
phase. Here I did it all in graphite, and so you can kind of see them all together. But the searching line is when I'm like drawing through the cranium here. I'm not, before there was hair on that, right? He was bald. And so I was drawing his cranium and just what is that circle shape underneath there? And then is it a triangle chin? I'm thinking about the shapes. I'm drawing through the shapes. I'm figuring out what that oval is on his shirt sleeve even. And we'll get into this later, but is it concave or convex? I'm really thinking about this as dimensional. It's like, how do those fingers wrap around his hand? I'm forgetting a finger over here. I only did 3. But then when I like the drawing, though, I go, and I'm still doing it in graphite here, but then I start really banging in kind of like a lot thicker and harder line, because those are my decision lines. Those are the ones I want people to see. Those are the ones I'm going, no, this is what the side of his face looks like. And so I'm going to go a little bit darker. Believe it or not, we all do this to some degree, right? I do
Mm-hmm.
think that animators have that training, I think, a little bit, because we start so loose and usually in a different color. We have that training because also we have to hand our drawings. Back in the old days, I would hand my drawing off to Diana, and she would then have to know which line out of these lines was the one that I meant, right?
Oh, you were easy to work with. When we had to work with Glenn and he did those messy drawings, it was like, pick the right line.
Oh
And now go
yeah.
to the
And
next
it's,
drawing and pick the right line. But man, you had a lot of choices.
yeah. So there is, if you're doing your job right, there is this mentality that I think went along with being an animator in 2D, where you had to go, okay, no, it's this one. I'm going to carve that in. I'm going to do a little bit darker. I do think most all of us do it to some degree. Hey, look at this cool chart I made. Wow, huh? So 3
Ooh.
ways we think when we draw. Okay, so now this is another thing. I just invented this for this class. I'm now thinking of writing a new book because I'm so excited about this. And again, I say I've made this up. I think I have. I think we have
Yes.
3 ways that we approach every single drawing we do. But in character design, this is a whole nother level. And I'll show you that in a second. Is that we interpret. Interpretation drawing is basically copying, is what we call copying, right? Is when we're looking at either a photo or another drawing that somebody else did, and we are trying to get as close as we can to that drawing by putting it in line. If it's a photo of something, we are doing some changing. We're adding lines where there are none, right? We're simplifying potentially. We're taking out some of the texture and detail. If it's a real bird or something, we're not drawing maybe every single feather. We are simplifying probably as we
Mm-hmm.
interpret that to a drawing, to a line drawing. Unless we're rendering, then we might really go crazy and add a lot of detail. So interpreting is what we do for almost every single drawing, right? But then the next level is reinterpret. Now, reinterpreting a drawing is seeing something in a fresh way. It's caricature. I think that's probably the best way to put it, is that now we're looking at say a photo of a person, or, well, say that same bird. And then now we're going, oh, but I could make that beak a little bit longer. I could give it a little bit of a hook to it. I'm going to change it and make it look a little bit more, maybe like a cartoon character, maybe
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But that's reinterpreting, is trying to find the essence of that character, that thing, but now changing it to some degree. Okay. Now reinvent, that's the next level after that. And this reinvent may sound like you've changed it completely. I think reinvent means that you're still keeping the essence of the subject, but now you're bringing it to life in an entirely new way. Okay. And the best way to show that is, let me see if I can scroll this. Oh, here we go. is right here. Real cricket. And how many different ways can we show a cricket? One is, here's the interpret. I did not do this drawing. I found it online. But that's a pretty accurate interpretation of a cricket, right? It's based on real life. It has all the pieces and elements of this real cricket. It's just been simplified.
It's almost
To some degree.
scientific. It's no
It's
personality.
yeah, it's like a medical drawing, I guess you could say. Now, reinterpret this is a good example. It's Cricky from Mulan, right? It still has all the pieces pretty much that this does have. And by the way, there's like 3 sections. It's got a longer section, a mid thing, and then the head. And this is Barry Temple that did the final design, but he did kind of make this all one piece. But if you can see how the back legs work, they're thicker here and they thin out, and how the front legs work. Now, he got rid of 2 extra legs. I don't know if anybody noticed that about Cricky. Real crickets have 6 legs, right?
Insect.
And he made it 4. And so again, that's a pretty big reinterpretation. It's bordering on reinvention by taking out a few legs, but still it has the essence of the cricket. Then reinvent is Jiminy. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we got rid of the antlers. Now this is so far away from a cricket, and then on top of that you put them on human clothes. But this is so far away from how they move, walk. It has hands now, that I would say this doesn't even necessarily have the essence of a cricket anymore. So this is probably as far as you can go to reinvent something and still call it a cricket, right?
Right.
So in a way, this is kind of an unfair analogy here with Jiminy, but it at least kind of shows it. We at least kept the skin color with the green. Is a lot of crickets are green. And so they just went with that. And you can kind of see, even that, by the way, the little jacket that he has, in a way, does kind of give that feeling of the wings in the back here, or whatever those are, with that sort of longer coat. So anyway, he's a real big stretch, but at least it does show what I'm trying to talk about. So we need to decide when we're drawing, what are we doing? Are we going to try and interpret it? And sometimes that's what messes us up as artists, is that we don't figure that out on the onset. We don't stop and think for a moment before we sketch. We just dive in and we go, oh, I really like that photo. I'm going to draw it. Well, wait, how am I drawing it? Do I want to sort of change it? And if we do that halfway through, we get this really kind of odd drawing, right? Where it's kind of half realistic and half cartoony. And so I suggest that you kind of decide up front what you want to go about. So I like to ask questions. To me, as an artist, believe it or not, some of you guys I know are not good at math. I'm not. Some of you guys are not good at English. Some of you don't write well. Some of you write. We all have usually those stumbling blocks. My wife knows. She has to tell me things a lot of times, and I'll forget things. And it's really because I'm in my own world all the time. If we're in nature, it gets even worse. I'm looking at things and people, how they're acting. As an animator, I analyze people all the time. And the older I get, the creepier it looks, unfortunately. But my kids tell me that. I'm like, no, I'm just watching. But I love to go to an airport, and I like to watch people, and especially couples. I love like a boyfriend, girlfriend, a husband and wife, 2 friends, groups of people interact, because that's what's exciting to me. The thing that I draw the most are people acting and reacting to each other. And I'm kind of an acting geek. What?
That's okay, Tom. You're good.
Wow, it's 11:30. I gotta hurry. So with that said, what I've found is that we ask questions as we draw constantly. Should this be a curved line? Should it be a straighter line? We don't know we're doing it, but we are geniuses. Drawing is for geniuses. I want you to know that right now, because all the little every single line is a question answer. You're doing it in milliseconds, and you don't even know it. And there's so many that you don't even necessarily, you're not even registering in your head. You are doing it the whole time. And that's why you can actually be exhausted after hours of drawing, because you are thinking really hard the whole time.
Well,
So you
that's
got
what
to
you
ask
said,
yourself questions.
versions. That's going back to the very most important basic thing you said in the beginning, Tom.
Yep.
Versions. Yeah.
So by the way, if we don't, I have a lot to go over today and I'm taking too long, but if we don't get through everything, I will go into it more tomorrow, because I have a lighter load the next 3 days. And I may not get to drawing, unfortunately, today. So shape-based character design. Now we're getting into character design. When you want to design a character, it still comes down to basic shapes. And this is where I'm going to do a quick drawing. But let me talk about this real quick, which is, this is as basic as I can get it. I gave myself a challenge. I made 3 circles, and then I said, those are going to be the face. And then I gave myself only these pieces, a little curve for
Mm-hmm.
the mouth, an oval for the nose, 2 eyes that are basically perfect circles, and then 2 curves here that'll probably be ears. Those are the only shapes I'm going to use to define these 3 character drawings. And so when I did that, I went, okay, the first version is I'm going to put everything right in the middle. Okay. Doing that, I come up with a very generic, pretty ugly character, right? But as soon as I apply variance to the sizes and the shapes of things,
Mm-hmm.
and this is really key to character design, is I like to say it's shape,
Versions. Yeah.
size, and variance. Those 3 things. So I have shape here. I'm using the shapes that we have. The one in the middle is now adding a little bit of size variance. I've made the nose bigger. I've made the eyes smaller, but still equidistant to each other. The mouth is now smaller, but look, they're all still kind of in the middle. So I didn't go too far. I'm just changing the size variance. Now I'm doing size and shape variance, and then I'm putting things closer together. So the best one, see how all the same elements. Now I've lowered the ears and made them small. I've made that nose really big. I made the eyes really small. That mouth I kind of put on a curve and made it closer to that nose. And now everything is a little higher in that circle too, right? There's a bigger chin kind of a feel at the bottom. Instantly, I now have a character coming to life. Like, this is starting to feel like it has a little more personality, and it's all the exact. I did cheat. I made the pupils a little thicker and a little closer together. But now I can go crazy. Now, if I really play with the variance, and again, this one here is just changing the angle of that nose. Now it's up and down. And same here. But here I'm starting to kind of maybe make that circle not such a circle, making it more of a teardrop shape of that face. So now I'm playing with the shape variance also, not just size variance. And now I'm getting into characters that are really even more interesting. By the way, if you look at this, here's the magic of shape and size.
Mm.
Is look at these 2 on the right here.
Totally different personalities.
Totally different, but get this, there's even an age difference.
Mm-hmm.
Which one
Yep.
looks older and which one looks younger? I've actually been able, just to use the same shapes and same idea at least, made this one look younger
Yep.
and made this one look older.
Yep.
And that is the magic of character design. You actually can control these things if you do it on purpose. The more we have, and the way that, real short, I won't get into this too much, is more whenever I make eyes bigger and everything lower on the face, more forehead up here and everything smaller down here, ears lower, that's going to feel younger.
Right.
But whenever I go the opposite direction, I have things higher on the face and smaller eyes, that'll end up being an older feeling face. It's
Right.
that basic to show the difference between a baby and an adult, right? So we'll probably get into that more.
Babies have more brains.
They do, or something. They're certainly cuter. Okay, so those were simple shapes. Now, obviously, we don't want to just create characters with simple shapes. We'd have Powerpuff Girls, right, all the time.
Right.
And we want to go beyond Powerpuff Girls. We want to get it so a Disney level character or elsewhere is going to have multiple shaped faces. And so the more complex characters deserve more complex shapes. So you're going to have, it's an oval, but with sort of this smaller square at the bottom. So I get this skull-like shape. This one in the middle right here is actually Jafar, pretty much, right? He's a
Oh yeah,
triangle,
that's
and then he's got
Jafar.
this long, and then he's got the triangle at the bottom, throwing the nose right here and the mouth real low, and that's basically Jafar's shape, right? But so we can start with the cranium being a circle, but we can have sort of this bean shape be the rest of the face. We can have characters that are a little bit more like a baseball diamond, right? Um, and so playing with organic shapes and adding shapes to shapes is really, I think, a key. And this is where I'm going to jump in and do a quick drawing, just because I'll feel bad if I don't do one. You guys can see this, right? So why we use crosshairs? A lot of people and go, well, why? Wait, why is it doing that? Shoot, I'm having connection problems.
Nope, it's fine.
So if I put my crosshairs here, why I'm doing that is I want to know where. Yeah, it's not connecting right. This is weird. I want to know that these eyes are this distance to that. I need to be equidistant to that center line. I need them to hit the bottom line, and then I need to know where that nose shape is going to be in conjunction to that, right? So that, by the way, these are my basic shapes for this character.
I think I know who that is.
Yeah, you probably
Yeah.
do. If I add this, you might know even more. But these are the
I think
basic
he
shapes.
growls. It's a growling
He might growl.
character. Yeah.
So if that's my basic shape of my character, by the way, it's Simba, then I know that now I can take those basic shapes and I can draw him from any angle. Now that I do the crosshairs, and by the way, I am drawing this through in my head. I'm not always drawing these circles going all the way around, but I want it to feel like it's wrapping all the way around. But these are the ones I want to see.
Like it's made out of glass, almost like you're doing
Yeah,
glass
that's a good
sculpture.
point.
I think that's a good way, though. It's good for you to show this, Tom, because we've got a lot of people that just want to draw, that haven't had this experience and are just drawing from their imagination, and yet your imagination is so full of these shapes. It makes a difference. It's great to see you
So now
draw
I'm
through.
thinking like this. I'm thinking about how far it is from that line, right? And I know that this one's going to be more of an ellipse. It's not going to be as round as this one because of perspective, right?
It's
And
farther
it's going
away.
to be behind that nose because now that nose, because I'm tilted up, is going to be higher. And I'm going to throw that in up here, and then, so he's looking up, so he's got his mouth open. And this is as simple. Now I can have him looking up. And now I know how I can draw him. He's going to have less of a cranium showing because we're at an up angle.
Mm-hmm.
But this is how that we can, of course, the ears are going to be more down here too. Might see a little bit of it over here. But with those basic shapes now, and now he's sad. He's looking down. So I'm going to now do that same circle. And I'm going to add that same muzzle shape, which is just basically a rectangle. I just draw sort of a rectangle here. And then I add on that triangle, but it's kind of wrapping around. It's not just a triangle. It's got a little curve to it because it's got to feel like it's going around that shape, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll even make it a little harder. I'll actually have him smiling, like he's looking down at Timon. So looking down.
It's nice to see that you really organized your thoughts first with the straight-on view. You kind of established in your head what those relationships were, and now you're really playing with perspective and expression.
Yeah, and you have to. You got to know what it looks like from the front and from the side before you can do any of this stuff.
Oh, Simba.
I opened his mouth, so I had to make that shape just a little bit longer because he's talking, I guess.
His little boy hair. Wasn't it great when they brought the lions to the studio? I mean, that was just amazing.
It was. And even when I'm drawing on his neck, like I'm thinking about it connecting here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I know where those lines go because I'm drawing this tube in my head. I don't always draw that, but that would be where it's fitting into this circle, right? Is that's a tube. And I could even think about his you know, his vertebrae back here, and his I don't know, his, what do you
Yeah,
call
the
it,
base of
larynx?
his skull. Yeah, where it's connecting in.
Larynx is coming through here, so I know that that's going to curve into here, and we might see a little bit of the opening of his mouth in there, because it's going to, you'll see it a little bit here. I think about those things even in my very quick sketch. The longer I've been doing it, I know that I need to think about those things to make every drawing believable. Oh, by the way, look, that's a sketch. If you wondered
Yeah.
what a sketch is supposed to look like, this is definitely a sketch, right? Is that I'm not erasing. I'm just adding. I'm changing. I'm going, oh, and now I'm going to add some fluffs and tufts here, some hair. We'll get into that stuff, okay? But, and yeah, it's a little too rough, right? It's a little too scribbly. So maybe I will go in and just erase some of this under drawing and get a little clarity there. Okay, so I got to get back on track. So that's why we do the crosshairs. That's why that's important. Now I can turn that in space. I know it's a shape. It's not just lines, it's a shape. And so I can turn a circle in shape. All of us can. We know once we have that crosshair in there, now I know where those eyes are supposed to go. And it really does help give you that guide. Let's go back to this. So I've already talked about shape, but being able to break down a character into its basic shapes is really the key to how you can replicate that character. Not just design a character, but replicate it. What does it look like from the side? Right? We all run into that problem. I have so many people ask me, I know how to draw my character from a front view and I really love it, but as soon as I draw the side view, it looks horrible. This is how. This is one of the keys to that, is knowing what those shapes are and what they look like. I'm going to go through this really quick. Size, we've already talked about this, but this is boring, right? If I have 3 circles and I just stack them on top of each other and they're all the same size, they're medium-sized circles, that is very boring. Okay, so this is a design principle. This is the most boring thing you can do, is make things the same distance, same size, right? As soon as I do this, I build a snowman, right? I do the large one on the bottom, medium, and then small. I've gone from dull to pretty big. And now that has a better design to it. It's actually growing in distance, or it's shrinking depending on which direction you go. But this negative space around it is a lot more interesting. The ins and outs are a lot more interesting than here, where it's just repetitive.
Good variance.
Now
Yeah.
I can go the next level and really apply variance even more so. And now I do it this way. I stack it so small is in the middle, medium is on top, and large is on the bottom. Now I get really interesting negative shapes. And
A
really
sexy
oftentimes,
snowman. Sexy
right.
snowwoman.
Well, and do you know who that is? Anybody? It's the same idea as, hold on, I'm going to do it really quick.
Oh. And they're asking you to sing, would you like to draw a snowman?
Yeah, right. Well, this is a horrible version of that, but
Yes, there he is. Olaf.
Olaf is the exact same scenario as this.
I think they took it out of your books, Tom.
I do think the book came first, so I agree.
It did. It did come before Olaf.
So obviously I've been talking about faces and stuff. All of this shape and variety, it applies to bodies too. I have this in my book too, as just a reminder. By the way, this is Roger Rabbit here in the middle, that every character should have its own basic shapes and they should be unique to that character. I should be able to see just the silhouette and be able to go, oh, wow. I mean, like this does look like the Warner Brothers Fox. Some of these are going to look very unique, at least to themselves. These are, and obviously those are all pretty varied. There's not a very normal person here. You got to go from a superhero to a little squatty wrestler. But in general, that is the goal, is to have a uniqueness. And this shows it even better. A few years ago, I developed this Hong Kong Phooey relaunch for Warner Brothers. And it didn't go anywhere. So I'm showing the artwork here. So you're the only ones that have ever seen it. But as you can see, each character has its own size and shape that is unique to itself, even though it's within the same drawing style. And, even if you look at the noses, they're all pretty close. Like they're all small nosed, except for Hong Kong Henry here. He's got a really big one. But even those are a little bit more varied. Like his is a little bit bigger, his is tiny. And then, but how each eye is working, they're very similar, but and then the body shapes, of course, is where there's the biggest change. All of them have very different body shapes. But it makes for a nice, interesting lineup and to see those characters together. So you got to think about your cast. This I've already talked about, but this is really just showing knowing your basic shapes of your character will help you turn that character in space.
Right.
And so we'll probably get into that more. This is a really important one, and I know we're getting close. We got to wrap up. Dimensionality. This will be something I talk about a pretty fair amount as we move forward. And this is that Zen that I was talking about, which is I'm not just drawing lines, I'm drawing shapes, and shapes have dimension. And so as I'm drawing these lines, I can be making a lot of mistakes. If I have a great character that I've designed that I'm really happy with, now, obviously, one of the last things you do is you put clothes on it, right? At that point, you can really kill your drawing. That's another tip and trick, by the way. I'm going to highlight that. And why I say that is, like, if this was the pose, this guy on the left here, and he's got his arm on his hip, I can show that in two different ways. Look at this red drawing here. I can make that same outline look like this or like this. And it's just how I've done the concave of the sleeve, how I've overlapped those lines. And it looks like that elbow's going away from us here. Now, if I draw the concave of that sleeve a different direction, going in, so that's concave, this is convex, concaving in, then it looks like this elbow is coming at us, right? And same with the wristwatch that's on him. I'm making that concave instead of convex. And so literally instantly, I have two different ways to draw that. Many times I see this on Instagram. See how this arm is? It's coming out at us. We know that because we can see the palm.
Perspective conflict, yeah.
Yeah, there's a perspective conflict in that we have that elbow is definitely going away from us and that palm is coming at us. And so the overlap of these lines is correct. But what's incorrect is this this is probably a better way to do it, is so that we make that arm really look like it's coming out toward us. And so doing more of a concave, you can almost get away with either one, because really this is pretty close. But having it that convex right here really is making it feel like it's going away from us quite a bit. And it really isn't. It's starting to come out. So this might be a little bit more, and that goes with creases and wrinkles. I'm moving this around.
You know what, Tom? Your drawings are so good that your bad drawing just doesn't look that bad. But when you look at it with when you look at it with the right drawing, then it's like aha. It's like really aha. I think that's one of the problems that we have, or challenges that we have when we're a new artist, that it's difficult to see especially when somebody does a drawing as nicely as that, but it's got things that are wrong. It's hard to see it. So this is really good for us to start learning how to have better eyes.
So, we're close. So that's good. I really want to hit positive and negative. So when you go to figure drawing class, this is going to be something, again, I told you about, how you draw, how you hold your pencil, because it'll probably be charcoal too. They like to make you draw with charcoal. I hate charcoal, but I like to use pencils and stuff when I'm in figure drawing. But you do want to use that technique. The other thing they're going to say is, and this is new to a lot of you guys, is that the idea of looking at the positive and the negative shapes. Now, what that is these are all Mickey poses from the olden days. Notice that the interior areas, if I were to shade him in black, right? Everything on the inside of the lines, that is the positive shape. That's the drawing, basically, the drawing that I'm making. Now, the negative shape is all the space around it. So you can see the ins and outs, right, all the way around him. That is the negative shape. So, and the other thing it's also talking about is overlapping shape, which is a nice touch too. but I really want you to concentrate on the negative shapes. Negative shapes is how we see a good silhouette, and we'll get into
Right.
silhouette later. But if I have my hands in front of me, if you guys are looking at me right now on this monitor, and you blacked me in, you sketched me in, you wouldn't see my hands, right? Because they're within my drawing space. They're in the positive space, right? But if I turn to the side and I'm gesturing and talking like this, now you can see my hand gestures. It's a little busy behind me, so maybe it's a little hard. But in general, you can, because now there's negative space that is helping you see my hands. That is the key to silhouette. By the way, when you go to theater, if you've ever been to Broadway in New York or anything like that and seen a theatrical play, the way that the actors act is they don't act straight to the audience. They literally are posing themselves so that they're facing each other more. You're seeing them so you can see their negative shape. They literally, that's an old school theatrical thing, is to
Mm-hmm.
perform to the audience, but at a 3/4, so that they're straight out, but I'm acting like this. And so when I refer to my person that I'm talking to over here, I don't literally turn to the side. I just turn my head a little bit and I kind of look at them out of the corner of my eye so that my face is clear. They can see my
Right.
expressions
Right.
from the audience. Also my voice, right? You want to constantly be throwing your voice out, but you don't throw it out this way. You're throwing it out a little bit of it at an angle so that they can see your gestures. And
Right.
that's a very theatrical. It's really the heart of creating strong poses too.
Walt Stanchfield used to tell us, play to the balcony.
Yes, that's awesome.
You've
That's awesome. Yeah.
got to project to the people up in the balcony, not the people in the first 2 rows. And then I think that's really important in animation too. It's got to be more clear than a live action film.
It does. And you'll see that. So real quick, curves and straight. So straight against curve is a design principle. And what that is it really shows that we don't want to have tubes, right? When we draw our characters. And I'll talk more about this when we get into female anatomy tomorrow. But we don't want tube shapes. We want everything to always have at least a little bit of a taper, or widening at the top and tapering at the bottom, or vice versa. And one of the ways you get a more interesting shape too is by having really directional curves, right? So when I draw a leg or something, it's curved on, this is the side view, of course, curved on one side, it goes to the other side and
Mm-hmm.
curves, and it goes straight here and straight here. And I may not always do it that straight. You know, this almost looks like I used a ruler. It's so straight. I did that to accent that. Now, if you look at Bruce Timm's Batman the Animated Adventures,
Yeah.
he does do this. Like they're super
Yeah.
straight and then curve, or it's a curve on this side and super straight on that side. It really does get this crisp. In general, like a figure drawing person once told me that you want to do, if you can almost do these shapes to define, why is this not drawing? Oh, here we go. To do a figure drawing, it can be almost like curve, you know, almost like a river. Curve here, curve here, curve here, curve here, curve here, right? And then the rest is
Yeah.
all just filling in the slightly more straights. We'll make this a female. Right? So that's just to do it in it was curve and then curve and then curve and then curve and curve, and it's you're ping-ponging back and forth basically to create this river that flows through the body.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a fun way to think about it, at least, and it's based on, you know, human anatomy. Okay, so lastly, perspective and depth. This is a big subject. I'm just touching on it, and again, we'll keep talking about perspective. Many of you are still drawing your characters when you draw a character as, here's my character, and there's the arms,
You guys, I
right?
just
And
want to interject this perspective and depth. Tom goes more into detail in his second book. So if you're wondering where some of this more technical or advanced information about that. And drawing the shapes on the characters, that's in his second book. So the little compare and contrast that he had with the guy in the shirt and things that weren't describing the forms going the right direction, and this one right here on perspective. Those are both in the Character Mentor book.
And so, yeah, when we first start drawing, and maybe even in high school, this is how we draw figures. The legs, the feet are really literally going in two different directions because we only know how to draw flat. The waist here is flat, right? Everything is flat. The character's waving, but it's waving flat. I want you to start thinking about your characters as being in like dimensional cubes or cylinders in a way. And so as I'm drawing that, I know that there's going to be an ellipse here at the waist. There's going to be probably at the neck. I might even go up this way. And so when I draw this, and then also that arm is going to come at us. I'm going to have it dimensionally look like it's coming at us more. It's a horrible drawing. And again, the how I define the closing will help show that.
I think you have a really nice version of that too in your first book, where you have the big shape breakdown of that superhero, and you've got that basic, taking those basic shapes and really finding the perspective, the dimensionality to them.
Yeah. So they're, but even just getting those feet to have a little bit of dimension to them, so that they're at a little bit of angles, and you can feel that there is sort of a grid here underneath it.
Yeah, feel the floor.
Immediately, again, this is another tip and trick. That's going to push you to the next level doing that. Some of your friends that draw, they're still drawing like this. You start drawing like this, and boom, you're going to go, whoa, that Tom Bancroft did teach you something. That's amazing. Okay, and that's really all I'm showing here is showing it. Don't draw flat and just straight across. You can do this every once in a while, obviously, but even those feet, I hate it when I see feet just going like penguin feet.
Yeah.
Because nobody does that, right? They always are going to be coming more at us. That's how our feet stance is, right? They're not like this. They're more like this. And so getting that dimension there too, you can even show things from a more dynamic position, and that's kind of what this is showing too. Okay, we barely are making it. We're at 11:58. I have one assignment. It's super light, but this is your assignment if you choose to do it. Obviously, this is optional.
Are you going to post this on the Facebook page?
Yeah, so the idea
okay.
is that, yes, you'll do these sketches and you'll post them to the Facebook page. Some of you guys already have your own characters that you've designed. And I want you to then start really doing this, where find your favorite characters or ones that you've already created and break them down into their basic shapes. And that might mean you then go to the next level and you start posing them or doing drawings of them in a different kind of a pose, your own pose, in those basic shapes too. But I want you to at least kind of, be it an anime character or whatever, some characters that you like, try to start figuring out what are those shapes. And then now that I know those shapes, I'm going to try and do another drawing where it's more from the side view, or now they're trying to pick up a rock. Give yourself a little assignment. How would that look?
Tom, do you want them to do a lot of their own characters, or do you think it might be a good idea for them to find something that already has good design and shape, or do both?
Yeah, and you're right. That's a good point. Maybe it is better to find existing characters for that reason, so that we kind of already know what they look like, and so you figuring out their shapes is going to be the added challenge. So yeah, I would stick with that. I think that's a good idea. How many people did show up? I'm going to stop screen sharing.
We have 68.
Okay.
And if we can unmute a few people if we've got some questions that people want to have, because we're typical Tom. You're just so generous, and we're going to be running a little over, but I think that's okay.
Yeah, let's do a couple, because I promised we would.
All right. Why don't I step back, and I'll make you the host, and you can take over with all of that. Okay. I am going.
Yeah.
Tom is now the host.
Quick, in that link that I sent out maybe Saturday, I think it was, that had the original Zoom link. It had a Facebook page link. I hope, and I don't know exactly if I set this up right. Hopefully you can hit that link and like it, and that's all you needed to do to join that page and be
We
able
may
to.
have to work on that later. Some people are saying that they don't have a Facebook page, and somebody else mentioned that they couldn't get into it. So I said
Yeah.
we'll take care of the Facebook challenge after class, so to speak, and let's just open it
Yeah.
up to have some people talking to you.
Yeah, I have a meeting in a few minutes, so I only have a couple moments. But yes, anybody have a question? Are we doing it in the chat? Because I don't think we can hear them now, right?
Ethan is opened up, and I'm trying to. It looks like everybody else has muted their mic.
Oh, I guess so. They can unmute at this point,
I
right? Oh,
believe
I
they
see a
can.
hand.
Yep.
Emma D has her
Hey,
hand up.
Haley has her hand up too.
All right, let's hit Emma D first. She's just the first one I saw. There you
So,
go.
of all the Disney animation characters that you worked on, which one was like the most fun to sculpt and find angles for?
Well, I mean, I always say this. So my favorite one to animate and draw was Mushu in Mulan. You could probably see I have quite a few Mushus just right here. And it's because I designed him. He was the one. I was a supervising animator. I got on the film about a year early, and I was able to, through that year, design him. Almost 6 months of designing him. I did hundreds of different versions of him, and then about 6 months of animation tests and stuff like that. It was a little too much time, really, but it was good for me to do that. And so by the time the production scenes, the actual real scenes for the movie came in, I was pretty ready, and I'd kind of prepared other animators to animate Mushu also. And so, yeah, he's the one I'm most proud of because I can draw him in my sleep from any angle. I've drawn him so many times and from any different kind of expression you can think of. So, and the nice thing is because I designed him, nobody can say I drew it wrong for the rest of my life. I could do a crappy Mushu drawing and go, no, that's right. Yeah. So anyway, hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, Haley Hahn, she's got her, she has her hand up. Go ahead,
Hi,
Haley.
Tom. That was amazing. I love that so much.
Thank
and
you.
I loved learning about like perspective and dimensionality. And I've taken several figure drawing classes, but I feel like I still struggle with imagining the characters from different angles. So do you have any suggestions on maybe like some human anatomy courses or books or anything else to help improve with that?
Okay, well, good news. The next 2 days, we're going to be doing it. So that's phase one. I'm going to talk about female anatomy tomorrow and simplified female anatomy, maybe even more important. And then male simplified anatomy on the next Wednesday because we'll draw superheroes. I'm doing it in themes because I thought, well, we'll do mermaids and that'll be fun for some people. And that'll be how I talk about female anatomy. We'll do superheroes and that'll be more about male anatomy. So I'm kind of killing two birds with one stone, I guess you could say. And then finally we'll do an animal. So I'll be able to talk a little bit about animals. Yeah, and that's where Diana is
Animals.
She's a real whiz at animal anatomy. So I'm going to do a light touch on that because I'm not as much, but I did animate Simba, so I can talk a little bit about it.
You're very good with lions.
So anyway, back to your question. There's some good animal. Maybe Diana, what is the go-to animal?
My go-to is the Kent Holgren book for animals. The construction. He worked up with Disney on the Bambi movie, and it shows it. Everybody seems to be reinventing Jack Ham or Kent Holgren, all the animal books. I know there's a few new ones out there, but they just like anatomy books. The best ones repeat themselves. So find ones that resonate with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good one, Kent Holgren.
And we can put these things in the chat too, and post lists later.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, that was for animals. You were talking about humans. I'm
humans.
Sorry. Yeah. Oh, so I grew up with the Bern Hogarth books, and that's like muscles. Like he basically did the Tarzan comic strip in the 60s. And so he talks a lot about more like superheroes, like a lot of comic book artists go to Bern Hogarth as like, there you go.
This
as
is a
like,
good one too. Steve Houston was leading figure drawing workshops at Disney Feature Animation, so he's a little more hardcore
That's a good
fine
one.
art. But I think I do that combination of Steve Houston, Hogarth, Michael Hampton, who has that break apart with all the colors that they like, and
Brigman? Is
and
that what
Bridgman. Oh, well, Bridgman's
Bridgman.
my go-to basic. So I love Bridgman because he
Yeah.
was Bern Hogarth's
Yeah.
mentor. So
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll get geeky about that stuff. Sorry. We're gonna have to go to the next question, but more coming on that.
JT and Nate had their hand up.
Okay. I see other hands too.
How would you, for like Mickey's ears, how like they don't change perspective? Like how would you add that on a character without really breaking it?
Okay, so
Like
short,
The cheat on Mickey's ears.
yeah. So short answer is I wouldn't. And then the second part to that is that even the old Disney animators, somebody once asked one of the master animators, like, how do I make Mickey look straight up? You know,
He doesn't.
and basically, yeah, that was the answer, is you just don't do that. And so there's certain characters that if they have those kind of design limitations that are built in, where I'm going to always have these circle shapes. And you've seen some Mickey shorts where they literally like animate them as he turns. There's sliding on his head. That's not really the way the old school animators would do it.
Nope.
They would basically sometimes, and I animated.
That's why Mickey doesn't work in the digital format.
One of the first things I did when I was coming out of CalArts, my first job in animation was animating a Charlie Brown special. And Charlie Brown and all the Peanuts characters, Snoopy and stuff, they do not turn very well. They're not, because it was a comic strip. Schultz, when he just made the comic strip, he wasn't thinking about animation. So Charlie Brown's nose from a front view and from a side view, it literally like slides down. They don't relate necessarily. And so their trick is they just pop it there. They do it in one or two drawings, and you can't do a slow head turn of Snoopy or Charlie Brown. You just can't. Not the way it's drawn. So that's the answer, is that if you have certain limitations in your design, then you're not going to be able to do Disney level animation with real subtle movement. And Mickey is one of those. I saw Samantha had a question earlier. I don't know.
We have a
yes.
Bragdon and Lucia.
Sorry, wait, Christina. That's what it was. She had her hand up.
Okay, you're seeing.
Yeah. I was just wondering, are we going to be going over dynamic posing and line of flow? Because I haven't had any art classes, but I know I've seen a couple of those, and that's why I have trouble with that.
Okay, so
line of flow.
The way I've designed this is that every day we're learning, say, 2 or 3 principles. Again, mermaids, I'm going to talk about female anatomy. I'm going to talk about flow and gesture, because that works really nice with a mermaid. And so that'll be sort of the second tier thing that we'll learn tomorrow. And with superheroes, dynamic poses that goes along with it, right? So we will talk about male anatomy, but we'll also be talking about dynamic poses.
Okay, Tom, let's take 2 more questions, and then we gotta wrap this up.
I'll let you pick it, Diana.
No, you go ahead. You can see.
Well, I'm not scrolling, so.
I see Lucia. There's Lucia and Brogdon.
Yeah. Okay.
Lucia, go ahead.
Hi, I had a question kind of pertaining to when I make a character. I find that one of the things I struggle with is getting so caught up in details about the character, and like my thoughts just get all muddled in what I want to do with them. Is there any advice you can give as far as like how to organize your thoughts for the character, what direction you want to take as far as their personality translating into their pose?
Yeah, and by the way, I was looking for you the whole time, so I may have missed part of your question, but
oh, you're fine.
I found you. So I think what you're saying, I think my answer is, if I heard your question right, is it's that moment before. Okay, so when I sit down, especially when I was younger, and I just like I would get so pumped up. Tell me if this is you. I'd hear a song on the radio, and it just get me all excited. Or I'd see
Oh yeah.
something, another drawing, or I'd go to a movie and get all like pumped up. I'm gonna draw. I would sit down with a sketchbook. I would bang out the worst drawings in that
Yes.
mode, because even though I was pumped up and inspired, I was just jumping into a blank piece of paper without thinking. And I'm thinking, because I'm pumped up and because I'm excited and because I'm sort of inspired, something great's going to come out of it. And that never happened. And then I would walk away discouraged. And so it wasn't until years later that I realized I can't do that. And maybe other people can, I don't know. But I knew that I found out really quickly that no, I have to have that inspiration and be pumped up. That's great. But then I have to think for a second. I have to take a moment and go, okay, but what do I want to draw? If I just jump in without knowing what I want to draw, and by the way, the more you draw, the longer you're drawing through years, you can jump in and probably something okay will come out. I'm not saying that, but at least at that phase, I found out really quickly, okay, I gotta go, okay, I'm gonna draw a mermaid, and not just a mermaid. Okay, I'm going to draw a mermaid that just found a new friend, and it's a dolphin. Okay, now I'm going to have them, and I'm still thinking. I'm trying to see a scene. I'm trying to see a personality come out. Okay, well, wait, what if I don't know, she sees a boy on the other side of the ocean that she wants to talk to, and so now I'm kind of trying to tell a story in my head, giving her a personality. The more I sort of define what I want and start figuring out that character and the scene and the moment that I'm trying to show, now I get hopefully even more pumped up, but now I'm hitting the paper with a direction. And that really is what, to me, made all the difference in the world of my sketching life, was that I started having a direction. I would give myself a direction. I kind of give myself an assignment, for lack of a better term. I think that might be something you might want to apply to your characters, is that get to know them, have an understanding of who they are, and it'll help you define what kind of hairstyle they should have, what clothing they would wear, all those things. I think I answered your question, but I'm not sure.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. I do have to go. I have like 10 minutes to eat before my next meeting, and I've really liked this. I really hope you guys did. I hope we can get the Facebook thing working. And definitely we're going to stop recording in a moment, and we're going to definitely get that uploaded to YouTube so that people that missed it can see it.
Tom, there was a question that this was originally going to be 2 hours, and
Yeah.
you started at 10:30 your time. And
You're right. I forgot about that. Okay. Sorry about that. Oh, we do have extra time. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you time to do a wrap up. I mean, we've got questions, and it sounds like the questions are getting advanced and getting ahead of where you want to go.
I still had 12 o'clock in my head, and we're going to 12:30.
Right. So maybe if we could have maybe you do some drawing and thinking. I think when you were drawing Simba, it was just amazing. So maybe if you could recap and review what you did today and that assignment. We can also do more questions. Tell me what you'd like.
Yeah. Do you guys have a request of a drawing? I'll just do that. I'm going to draw for you.
Yes.
What would you like me to draw? Shall we do that? I mean, I could tell you how
somebody wants Mushu.
Okay.
How many people? We got a lot of people saying Mushu. Okay, it's Mushu. Hands down. You got it.
I can do that in 15 minutes. No problem.
Mushy Mushu. Okay. Mushu.
Now, I can still screen share, correct?
You are in charge.
Just get my paper ready. I've been using Photoshop for a long time, but I still do very basic things on it. So many of you guys are much better at Photoshop than I am, I'm guessing, and where you can like just zoom through it. Now, I was having kind of a glitch earlier. I'm hoping
I know you were having a lag. It was like your pencil wasn't.
Yeah, I kind of think it was because PowerPoint was open. So I've shut down PowerPoint. So hopefully I won't have that now. I'm actually going to do this in 2 phases, like I said I would, which is I'm going to, where's my colors?
Okay, you want to share your screen? We're still seeing you.
Oh, sorry. Thought we were doing that. Oh, it won't let me multiple. Oh, huh. Am I the one driving right now? Oh, there's 2 waiting to get in. I'm going to admit Ethan and this other person.
They must have left because I admitted people. Yeah, they left. We had 69 and now we're down to 6. That was down to 61. So somebody came back.
It's not. Am I the host right now, or are you?
Yes, sir. You are the host.
Huh. I don't know why it's not giving me that option to. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Down at the. It might be at the top when you're
Okay.
the host. I'm not sure. Share screen.
I got it.
Got it? Yep. We are seeing your screen now. We got it.
So I'm gonna just do, I don't know, a red. So now I'm red. Okay. And so let's see. Go think a little smaller. Mushu. Mushu is an oval. And I'm going to do this sort of at a 3/4 view. Now, I have such a shorthand of him that I may skip a few shapes, but in general, he's this shape. So he's a little flatter on the top and rounder on the bottom. And then he has at the end here this rounded triangle for his nose, okay? And so if he's sort of looking in this direction, that's where his face is pointed right now. So if I were to draw in all the crosshairs, which I almost never do anymore, and let's give him a little personality. I'm going to make him look a little sly. I literally will do this sometimes just to get that eyebrow shape to communicate across both eyes. It's weird to see it that way. I'm going to have his eyes slightly shut, but this will be his eyebrow shape here. I'll have that one up high, this one down low. He has these 2 lines in the middle here, a little crease on his nose. Now he's made up of a bunch of different animals. So that's sort of a pig nose that he has. And it's kind of, I created this design for his nostrils that are, again, kind of based off of these, ornate sort of Chinese shapes that we would see in other things. So he's got that. Those are supposed to be nostrils. He's got this hair lip, the top hair lip, and what that is from a camel, believe it or not. That's the idea anyway. Of course, he's got the whiskers that come out off the sides, and that's going to be his catfish kind of whiskers. I'll make him smiling, and that usually is way up here, and it kind of connects here. I'll add a little bit of a cheek up there, just a little bit. That's going to kind of come in on that eye. I'm going way too detailed. I shouldn't be doing this. I should be just sketching in the shapes. Okay, so I'm going to go back to that. These are his horns in the back. Notice that they're going out at slightly different angles. And his ears are a little flatter on the top, a little rounder at the bottom. These are cow ears. They're that's what it's from. This one might be sticking up a little bit at an angle. By the way, this one always has the chip in it. I added one, has a little chip out of it. Now and we'll have him just smiling. So I'll add the bottom jaw, just there. We'll go into that more in a second. I'll add his pupils. He looks weird without the pupils. So now the S curve of his neck. Now his neck connects way in the back of his head, not at the middle. A lot of people draw it here. It comes out the back. You gotta kind of imagine it coming out the back here. And again, his body is all S curves. So I drew this head too big, so I'm gonna really S curve out his body. And it tapers, so it's thicker here at the neck. And then it gets a little thicker, but then from there, it's basically a tube. There's not a lot of variance until we get to the back of the tail here. It goes thin again, real thin, right in here. And he's got this kind of a little bit of hair, but it's It's actually a fin. A lot of people think this is hair on the end, but it's hard. At least that's the way we imagine it, because it's really more of a fin on the back, and it's not like Simba's tail where it's fur. There are those the little fins on his, what we call his cheeks. And by the way, this is designed like we just learned. It's a small fin, it's a large fin, and then it's a medium fin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we just learned that, right? With the snowman, I applied it here. So it's a large in the middle, kind of a medium on the bottom, and a small one at the top. And that's not by accident, and most people get that wrong, except for you guys from this point forward. There's that body line that goes down the middle. And again, so we'll get into that in just a second. I like to give him a good amount of neck. So about here might be where I put in his shoulders. And it does taper. They're thick at the shoulder, and then they taper down into his wrists, which is just really tight. And now he's got claws. They are kind of sharp and stuff, and it's eagle talons is what that's based off of. You don't think about it when you look at Mushu that he's got eagle talons, but that's what a lot of. And obviously, it's a snake-like body, right? I don't have to say that. We'll put this arm up. See, and even his palm is kind of there, but then he's got those talons. So it's usually a little bit like a less of a curve on that side, more of a straight, a little more of a curve on that side. That's kind of how you do his fingers. A lot like what we're learning, right? One straight on this side, curve on this side.
Mm-hmm.
Same basic idea. We'll get into the details here. And then coming out of here, of course, is his legs. We'll let's throw this one off to the side here. Go straight with it. Straight on one side. It has like, he's got kind of knobby knees. So it's sort of does this, like a little, I don't know, like a bridge. And then that foot will come out here. And there's a little bit of an S curve here at the bottom of his foot. He's kind of got S curves throughout his whole body. That's what we call a repeating design in character design. And then this leg is kind of come back and bend. So there's his knobby knee. It kind of comes back here into this foot. I'm making a mess, I know. Is it starting to look like him though? Feeling like him?
It is.
And what's missing? We got the big fin on his back, right? And so that again is just like the fins here.
It's a
It
detail.
comes off about mid neck here. We have a small fin. We have a large fin, and by the way, the shape of his back is going to mess this up. You're not going to really see the sizes too well, but that's a large fin, and then maybe he's got like a medium fin kind of peeking out the back here. So now I go to my next layer, because I said I would do this. I'm going to pull down the opacity just a tad, and then I'll go to the next layer and go to black, and now I can just really kind of shoot in here the actual lines. I've already added some details. I went a little further than I should have. But now I can kind of really nail down all these details in my sketch and like clear things up. There's a tangent here between his whisker and his ear, so I'll pull that over a little bit. So I don't want that tangent. That's when two lines are touching awkwardly. And then same here, I don't want that to touch the ear, so I'm gonna be careful. Now I can do those things when I'm drawing in graphite now. Notice that these two lines they're not parallel, right? They actually do kind of converge a little bit. There's a wider side, and that's not by accident. That's the other thing. As an artist, you need to start noticing every little thing. And is it a more straight line? Is it a slight curve to it? Is it seeing those things is what's going to make you a better artist. Is that it's not like, oh, I drew this line, but I meant it to be more curved, and so therefore you're going to fix it in your drawing. If you're really looking at how I'm drawing, don't fix my drawing. Draw exactly what I did, because I did it for a reason.
Well, and you are improving as you go along. Every time you redraw, that's what's nice about having your rough construction, and then you can kind of analyze it. And for everybody that's not at Tom's speed yet, he's been at this a really long time.
Well, yeah, Adam.
So you make it look really easy, Tom. And it's just, I know people have just got to give themselves the time to get it right. It just doesn't happen overnight.
Well, yeah, and this is recorded, so hopefully if you really want to, go into this later, you can.
This would be a good drawing for them to do big shapes on too.
Yeah. And then he's got there's some black tip to his ears, so I can add that little blackness here. And then same with this on this side. I'm trying to do this quick, so.
That's right. We got about 4 minutes.
And then his horns, he's got like a little small piece, and then the bigger curve of the bottom part, and it's a little darker on the end, so I just sort of shade that in just a tad. His teeth are not this as they go across, right? They are they're more like this, right? So really think about that too. Put them at a little bit of angles as you're coming down here. Okay, something a lot of people miss too, and not you guys. You're on the inside track. Oops, getting sloppy. I think I hear other people eating lunch, and I just want to eat lunch now. I hope you guys have enjoyed this and got a lot out of it. I know I packed a lot in there. I hope that was a good thing, not a bad thing. It felt like everybody was listening and really paying attention, which was great.
Somebody had a question asking about how many dragons did you draw before you came up with Mushu?
157. No, I don't know. But, there were quite a few. Now, I will say that the last, I don't know, now I said I think it was like around 6 months to design Mushu, but really around the last 3 of those months, it was the same dragon pretty much. I was just making tweaks and starting to do the model sheet and things like that. So it's really maybe 3 months of really some crazy variations. I did some where he looked like a Dr. Seuss character.
Yeah.
That road for a while.
How much did you look at the kind of poses that Eddie Murphy took?
Not as much as I thought I would. I did a lot of Eddie Murphy research. I watched all his movies, the best ones, especially like Trading Places and Beverly Hills Cop.
I love Beverly Hills Cop. That one just
most of you have not seen those movies, but man, they are the best. And that's pure Eddie Murphy back in the day. And then all his Saturday Night Live stuff back when he was on that was all really his kind of his best stuff. And then when we recorded Eddie, by the way, Mushu has like 2 or 3 little tufts of hair on his elbows. A lot of people miss that, or they'll put too many. I don't like it when it looks furry. Oh, I forgot his hair over here. But when we did record Eddie, I went to 2 of the recording sessions, and so I would sketch him as he was recording. The weird thing, though, and I got very little information out of it. It was kind of disappointing because he didn't do a lot.
He wasn't very physical in his movement when he was recording.
Yeah, he wasn't. I thought he would be. I was hoping he would be, and he kind of just stood there. He did kind of put his hands on his waist a lot, and so that's one reason, like you see this pose here, is he did that a lot.
Eric Goldberg had that same challenge when he was doing the genie.
Mhm.
because Robin Williams didn't necessarily have a lot of broad gestures and silhouette.
Yeah. You don't realize that, but a lot of those comedians, they do it mostly with their mouth. I mean, it's more
Yeah.
their inflection that is animated than
Not
their
physical.
body. Yeah. And you don't realize that until you kind of really start analyzing their bodies, because you're looking for something, and then you go, oh, well, they don't really do a lot with their bodies. So
That's why you're the actor that's the animator.
right. It did make it fun for me. I always tell people, they're like, well, did you use a lot of what Eddie Murphy did, in Mushu? Because it really looks like Eddie. And a lot of that is deceptive. It's Eddie's voice coming out of this dragon. So, of course, it's going to look like Eddie. But the truth is that, no, it's more me in the acting.
It
I always
is.
say that Mushu is, if me and Eddie Murphy ever had a baby dragon, it would be Mushu.
And
It
if
sounds-
Eric had ever had a baby with Robin, it would have been the genie. Oh.
So now I can turn off that red layer. Notice I'm turning off the red layer, and now I have this probably a little bit more clean sketch that's in graphite, and that's kind of nice in Photoshop. Now I wouldn't get that in my sketchbook, of course, because I couldn't just turn off the red. But I can now color this in and have a sketch that, kind of might be almost final. It almost looks inked. It's not quite that clean, but
Yeah.
but that's Mushu, guys.
Yay, thanks, Tom. And maybe we'll put that one on the Facebook page, or you can pick another one if you want to give them some masterwork ones to maybe do for that exercise, in addition to those that want to do their own characters.
Yeah, I'll just flatten this. And I got to put something on Instagram, right? Maybe that'll be this. I don't know.
Okay.
But I'll save this. I just kept some of the red in there because it always looks good, right? And then we'll make this a JPEG or something. We'll dumb it down and call that. All right, guys. Well, that was fun, and hopefully a good ending to today's class. Sorry about that. A few guys had to come back because I forgot what time it was. So I'm going to stop sharing. All right. I have 27 minutes before my next meeting, but thank you guys for coming. I hope this was fun for you, and it's certainly something different, right?
Right. And we'll be posting some things on the Facebook page as well. In the chat, I've posted the link to the Character Drawing Bootcamp 2020 on Facebook a couple of times. And I've got some questions that I'll take care of with you afterwards.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. I just let in Samantha Buck. So we're going to say goodbye to Samantha, everybody. 1, 2, 3. Bye, Samantha.
Bye.
That was odd for you, Samantha. Sorry. All right. See you all tomorrow. Okay.
Okay. All right. Bye, Tom.
Thank you.
Recording.
Bye. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. I had fun too.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Farewell. At Wiedersehen. Goodbye.
Bye. That was Eric. All right. Are you going to stop recording, Diana?
Yes. I gotta cancel that. Stop recording.